Hey everyone. So this is something that we usually don't do. We'd already recorded the Niners news update for the week, but it's certainly warranted given the huge news that's happened in the last couple days. So I'm sure most of you know by now. If not, we're going to get into it and discuss it and kind of talk about what that means for the team. If you haven't heard, the 49ers made a massive trade to acquire former Carolina Panthers running back Christian McCaffrey. The Niners did give up a bevy of picks, 4 in total, including a 2023 second round pick, a 2023 third round pick, a 2023 fourth round pick, and a 2024 fifth round pick. Now, obviously, as far as McCaffrey goes, he's a very dynamic player. He has had some injury concerns in the past, although this season through 6 games he's had a few different ailments, but he's managed to play in all 6 games. He's playing very well right now, and currently, in terms of scrimmage yards per game, McCaffrey ranks 4th all time in NFL history, with 113.7 scrimmage yards per game. Obviously, he's a dual threat player, able to get it done both out of the backfield and lined up as a receiver, or catching passes out of the backfield. Which, adding him to our already dynamic offense is a huge get. And just to mention the 3 guys that are in front of Christian McCaffrey on that list. Jim Brown, Terrell Davis, and Barry Sanders. So pretty good company to be in. Now, obviously, the main concern here is everybody's going to say that we gave up a lot to acquire him with the 4 picks, and we definitely did. Obviously, coming into the offseason, we knew that we weren't going to have a first-round pick because we traded that away to acquire Trey Lance a couple seasons ago, so we're without a first round pick for the next couple seasons. So what this leaves the Niners with is a total of 5 draft picks, 2 compensatory third round picks, a 5th round pick, and 2 7th round picks, 1 acquired from the Denver Broncos. So obviously the Niners could still do some wheeling and dealing to acquire more picks before the draft in April. Obviously, it's a long way until then, but the opportunity to acquire a great player like McCaffrey was too good to pass up. I mean, the Niners really just couldn't afford to miss on that, especially because there were a lot of other teams in the Christian McCaffrey sweepstakes, including the Buffalo Bills, the Los Angeles Rams, the Denver Broncos, the Eagles, and the Washington Commanders were also rumored to be in talks with him or be interested. Especially the Rams. I guess, the Rams were engaged in heavy talks with him as well. So, big get, because obviously they're willing to swing for the fences in big trades in the past, obviously with acquisitions that they've made in years past. So good to go ahead and get one for ourselves. Obviously, our running game's been pretty decent with Jeff Wilson in there filling in for Elijah Mitchell. We're expecting Elijah Mitchell to be back around week 9. So, what does this mean for the offense now with Christian McCaffrey and Elijah Mitchell and Jeff Wilson, as well as George Kittle? We've got Brandon Ayuk. We've got Deebo Samuel. We'll have to see if this does anything different with Deebo's usage if we use him out of the backfield less now that we're more loaded at running back. We've got this is the current list of the 49ers running backs on the roster at this time. So obviously, quite a deep position. It's a position of strength on the roster, and we had been running the ball pretty well, except for that last game against the Falcons when we just got behind and kind of abandoned the run there. But interesting to see, very, very interested to see what McCaffrey can do for our offense. I mean, it's a big get. Hopefully he can stay healthy. That's my primary concern. But other than that, I love the acquisition. I wasn't sure because what I was hearing from the rumblings was they were going to want, a definitive multiple first round picks for him. That ended up not being the case. So we ended up getting, getting away with, we ended up getting him for a second, third, fourth, and fifth. So definitely a lot less than I thought the asking price would be, although, 4 picks is still pretty considerable. Last thing on McCaffrey is it is expected already that McCaffrey will play Sunday against the Chiefs, which would be huge. Obviously, we're going into a game where the Chiefs have a lot of offensive firepower and have been known to score a lot of points. So just having McCaffrey on the field, even for limited plays, I think he's going to be mainly featured in red zone packages and things like that. Will be a big get. I mean, even if he's a decoy, he's obviously going to draw coverage there. But I'm very excited to see what he can do. Notable about Christian McCaffrey, his dad, Ed McCaffrey, the famed wide receiver for the Denver Broncos for a lot of years, actually was a former Niner himself, playing on the 94 Niners team when Mike Shanahan was the offensive coordinator. So kind of interesting that at one point Christian's dad played for Mike Shanahan, and now Christian, Ed's son, is going to play for Kyle Shanahan. So kind of interesting there. There was also an article that Kyle Shanahan used to be Christian McCaffrey's babysitter at one point, although for a short time. So kind of cool how that all came together. Welcome to the Bay, Christian. We're happy to have you. And McCaffrey was making really good money with the Colts. Although the Niners get a little bit of a deal this season, we're only on the hook for $690,000 of McCaffrey's salary for the 2022 season. In 2024, it does go up to $12 million, and then in 2025, it goes up to $12.2 million, but with just $1 million guaranteed for injury. So that's notable as well. Former Washington Redskin quarterback RG3 really liked the move. He ended up putting out a tweet saying that the 49ers have McCaffrey, Debo, Kittle, Juszczyk, and Ayuk, that they'll be the most versatile offense in the NFL, personnel-wise. They have a running back who could be a starting slot receiver, a wide receiver who could be a starting running back, and a fullback who could be a starting running back or tight end. Nightmare matchups. And I agree. I mean, we were already pretty good on offense, although we've played below expectations in a few games, but definitely a huge move to get Christian McCaffrey. I mean, really excited to see what he can do. I think he's going to pay immediate dividends on Sunday against the Chiefs. And just a couple other things to get into here. As of the last game, Jimmy Garoppolo becoming the 7th franchise leader in passing yards, or moving into 7th place all time, and Kittle moving into 9th place in receptions all time with 354, which is behind Gene Washington, who had 371, and that moved him ahead of Michael Crabtree and his 347. Speaking of Michael Crabtree and the 2012 49ers team that he was on, the 2012 Niners will be in attendance, at least some of them, this coming Sunday against the Chiefs. Among the 49ers players and coaches that will be in attendance are former head coach Jim Harbaugh, former quarterback Alex Smith, got the Alex jersey right here representing, as well as Patrick Willis, all-time great, Navarro Bowman, his linebacker mate, Justin Smith, the Cowboy, Aldon Smith, Mike Iupati, and Joe Staley, of course, future Hall of Famer Joe Staley. So a lot of greats going to be in attendance this Sunday. So hopefully we can get a win on the day that we're honoring the 2012 Niners team. Of course, that was the team that went to the NFC Championship game, and then they went to the Super Bowl the following year. So great football team that we had there. Really happy to honor them. Kyle was asked about how he felt about, Jim Harbaugh, and he said it's awesome. I've always been a big fan of his, so he's looking forward to, getting to interact with him and seeing him at the game on Sunday. So that's pretty cool. I mean, definitely the best 2 coaches we've had since the days of Steve Mariucci, and of course before that, Walsh and Seifert. So Yeah, I mean, great to have Coach Harbaugh back in the building. Hopefully, we can get a win while we're honoring all those guys. Obviously, I expect a high-scoring shootout. We're going to talk more about that here in the Niners News Update. I just wanted to jump in and talk about a few urgent things that were, kind of pressing and breaking right there. So stay tuned for the rest of the Niners News Update right here. Hey, what's going on, faithful? Wish we were coming to you after another victory. Of course, 2 weeks ago we smoked the Panthers 37-15. We weren't able to keep the momentum going. However, dropping the last weekend's game 28-14 to the Atlanta Falcons. So kind of a bummer.
Yeah. Definitely a surprising outcome. I mean, I know going into this game, talking last week, we're like, oh, it's Falcons. You guys should have this.
Yeah. I mean, certainly on paper, the 49ers are the better team. We'll get more into that in a second. Real quick, if you're not already, just make sure that you like and subscribe to the channel, and like this video, and check out our other videos as well. But yeah, I mean, as far as this game goes, we came in, we were the favored team. But worth noting, the 49ers playing without 7 of their 11 defensive starters. Among those players, safety Jimmy Ward, defensive end Nick Bosa, defensive tackles Javon Kinlaw and Eric Armstead, cornerback Emmanuel Mosley, who we lost a couple weeks ago against the Panthers. He's out for the season with a torn ACL, unfortunately, so we're going to miss him for the rest of the season. And let's see, there were even a few more players I feel like that we didn't have. Oh, Charvarius Ward was out of that game as well. So
yeah, I didn't realize there was this many players out on defense, because that makes the loss a lot more. It makes a lot more sense. I mean, to let the Falcons score 28 points on you, obviously, defense was lacking. The offense obviously was lacking as well, only scoring 14 points. I mean, Jimmy's 2 picks definitely didn't help. Other than the 2 picks, he was having a pretty good game, but
yeah, and worth noting on those 2 picks, one of those was directly off of his receiver's hands and into the hands of a defender. So definitely not on Jimmy at all in that situation. Like we talked about earlier in the Washington game, there were Jimmy had several dropped passes too. He had one dropped by Charlie Warner, our backup tight end, right up the seam. Charlie dropped one that would have probably been good for 25, 30 yards. Ray McLeod got hit right in the hands with a deep ball by Jimmy. Everybody says Jimmy can't throw the deep ball, but he threw perfectly to Ray McLeod, hit him right in the fucking fingertips, and wasn't able to bring that in for what could have been a big gain, potentially even a touchdown. So there were some missed opportunities there. Like you said, Jimmy still for the day, 29-41, 296, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks, not sacked at all. So that offensive line, holding up and not allowing any sacks. The 49ers.
Yeah, he really had a great game, other than those ints, which, I mean, not even entirely his fault, but given the fact that he was protected so well the entire game, I'm surprised they only were able to muster 14 points.
Yeah. I mean, and that was, in the second half of the game, we just weren't able to sustain drives. And let me take a look here.
And you're playing from behind from the first quarter. I mean, they scored 14 points on you, and you guys didn't score anything. So that's not a way to start a game.
Yeah,
down to two scores.
And penalties continue to be a problem. We had 9 penalties for 50 yards, which killed some drives, and they had 5 for 33. So we had a lot more penalties than them. For the total yards situation, we did outgain them. Or I'm sorry, I'm looking at the. Give me 1 second here. I was looking at the Falcons game for penalties. Okay, for the Falcons game, we committed 5 penalties apiece. And they dominated the time of possession 33 minutes to 26 minutes. And for yards in that game, we actually outgained them 346 to 289. But they were just able to sit on the ball a little bit longer. One of those touchdowns that they scored was off of a very controversial fumble recovery for a touchdown, where it looked like Jeff Wilson Jr. was down. Looked like, it wasn't
I remember
reviewed.
seeing that.
Yeah,
I remember seeing that.
It should have been reviewed. Every scoring play needs to be reviewed.
from what
his
I remember
elbow looked
seeing,
down.
he was down. Like,
but well, it was ruled a touchdown because Atlanta picked it up and ran it in for and that was one of the touchdowns. So if you look at that, I mean, we would have only been down one touchdown if that play doesn't happen, and it would have made the situation a lot more it would have made it a lot more of a realistic comeback attempt. But yeah, I mean, as far as the second half of that game, I think it was, I mean, we ended up having one interception, punting twice, and then having a turnover on downs after an 80-yard drive. So we drove down into their territory, but obviously we needed touchdowns, and we weren't able to convert on a 4th and 2. So that was a disappointing situation. But yeah, I mean, obviously if that questionable fumble, which shouldn't have been a fumble at all, it damn sure shouldn't have been a touchdown, doesn't happen, then I mean that game is a lot more winnable. But credit to the Falcons, they played a good game. I mean, they're 3-3 now. Unfortunately, we're 3-3, but our 3-3 is still good enough to have us in first place in the NFC West.
You guys are fine because the NFC West is completely evened up, basically.
Yeah, I mean, the Rams have a 3-3 record, and the Seahawks do too. But we've beaten them both head to head, so we've got a tiebreaker on them.
So I wish the NFC East wasn't like so great now. Everyone's great except Washington.
Yeah, they definitely got better. And then we'll just go through the last few offensive standouts, and then we'll just talk about and then we'll move on and and then we'll talk about this week's game. Jeff Wilson, after having his best game of the season, where he ran for 120 yards and a touchdown against Carolina the week before, was limited to 7 carries for 25 yards in this game. The Niners in general only ran 16 times for 50 yards. Definitely not their recipe for winning. Obviously, if we run the ball usually under 25, 30 times, it's not a win for us. Brandon Ayuk caught 8 passes for 83 yards and 2 touchdowns. He had his best game of the season for sure. I mean, he's got 3 touchdowns on the year now. Kittle having his best game since coming back, 8 for 83. Debo caught 7 for 79. Juice caught 4 for 33. And Juwan Jennings had 2 for 18. And then obviously Ray and Charlie Warner with key drops, as we mentioned. And Jeff Wilson with a phantom fumble that shouldn't have been a fumble. And then, like we said, the Niners playing without 7 starters on defense. Talanoa Hufanga at one point left the game with a concussion. He would return, but he's currently in the concussion protocol. Hopefully he's all right and good to play the next week. We still
you can't lose Hufanga, man. That guy's been great.
Outside of Bosa, he's been our best defensive player all year. He's been even better than Fred Warner, which is crazy to say because Fred Warner's great. But yeah, I mean, playing with basically all backups on the defensive line. No Bosa, no Armstead, no Kinlaw. Drake Jackson, our second-round pick, got his 3rd sack of the season. Charles Omenihu got his 3rd sack of the season. So the Niners have 23 sacks, which is, second best in the league through 6 games. And there's been rumors that Bosa's returned to practice this week. There's speculation that we could get both Bosa, possibly Trent Williams from his ankle, and then Jimmy Ward could possibly play recovering from his broken hand. Now, Jimmy Ward, I saw him in practice. He's got a big club on his hand, like he's got a full cast. So obviously he's not going to be any factor to catch the ball. But Jimmy Ward's a great coverage guy. I mean, he's still got one good hand. I just hope that he doesn't try to swat the ball with a broken hand. I mean, that's going to cause him a lot of pain. But Jimmy Ward might be good to go. And then also Jason Verrett is no longer on the injury report, which is huge because we're without Emmanuel Mosley. He's expected to step in as a starting corner. But Diamador Lenore stepped up big last week. I mean, he had a great game against the Falcons. He had, what was it? He only had 3 tackles, but he played great in coverage. Fred Warner was the leading tackler with 10. And then Samson Ebukam, got to give him credit because he was our last defensive line starter, the only starter that played. And he left the game twice. and was really laboring through something. He kept coming back in the game. So, whatever he had, he's gotten through it. So really ballsy effort. But, I mean, I saw this metric that shows that the Niners are the most banged up team in football through 6 weeks of the season. I mean, we continue to be the most injured team. Obviously, this has been something we've dealt with in years past. It started with Trey Lance, and we've had Trent Williams go down, we've had Bosa go down, we've had Eric Armstead out for a few weeks. He's only played in like 3 games. We just put Javon Kinlaw on IR. I don't know if he's going to be able to come back at any point this season, but he continues to deal with knee problems. So yeah, I mean, Emmanuel Mosley's on IR. I mean, the Niners are just banged up, man. I mean, they're especially on the defensive side of the ball right now.
Yeah, that's a lot of players.
They continue to play great.
Out.
They can. I mean, aside from the Atlanta game, they continue to play great. So, unfortunately, this week though, we're going to be tested. We've got the Chiefs, and this is yeah. Of course, we had the notable 2019 matchup against them in the Super Bowl, where we had a lead for most of the game, and yeah, that game still resonates with me a lot.
I'm surprised you even brought it up.
Yeah. Well, they asked Kyle about it. They were like, how many times have you watched that game since it happened? And he's like, honestly, I don't watch it a lot, but he's like, I've watched it a few times to plan for them schematically because, they've got to get ready for them and game plan for them. So, we'll see. I mean, I think a big thing in that game was we kind of let our foot off the gas when we had the lead and didn't put them away when we could have. And then obviously the defense giving up some big plays.
That was like the first season that was watching the Niners with you, and I got all into it, and going to the Super Bowl, and I'm like, we're sitting there watching the game, and then they fucking lose, and like, what was it? How much time was left? Like 7 minutes or 11 minutes?
We were
7
up
minutes.
Like exactly. It was like 20 to 10 with like 7 minutes.
That was rough. Dude. That even got me. I was like, what the 30. Fuck?
Yeah. That was one of the worst games ever. Unfortunately, I thought we had it, man. It was looking so promising.
I know, right?
We were dominating Mahomes for the first, 3.5 quarters of that game. It was insane. Yeah. Bosa was terrorizing, so that's why we need Bosa back. I mean, if we've got Bosa in there, it's going to be huge. But
yeah, Bosa's like one of your top 3 players for sure. I mean, on defense, he's your best player. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, Hufanga's making a case for being number 2, but I mean, Bosa's definitely number 1 for sure. And, since I said we put Javon Kinlaw on IR, we did make a corresponding move. We signed defensive tackle T.Y. McGill, who had been on the Minnesota Vikings practice squad. Now, T.Y. McGill, I did some research on this guy. This guy, we actually played against him in the second game of the preseason. And this kid had 4 sacks in the preseason, T.Y. McGill. He would have made Minnesota's 53-man roster, but he ended up having a sprained ankle, and he ended up getting cut in final cutdowns. They stashed him away on the practice squad, but we ended up being able to get him. So he's going to be providing some additional depth, obviously, since we've been banged up. So I think that's a pretty good get for us. I mean, it's always good when you can bring in a player that can be potentially disruptive, especially since we were without our top 2 defensive tackles last game in Armstead and Kinlaw. So, I mean, it was Ridgeway and Kevin Givens, who they still played pretty well. I mean, but the Falcons just gashed us all over. I mean, we just didn't play our best game. I mean, but they've been solid rotational pieces, but you can't expect them to be starters. I mean, the key to our defensive line and why it works is because we're able to rotate guys in there and not have any guy play too many plays. That's kind of the art of your defensive line too over there in Washington. Is you guys have so many pieces, you can always rotate people in. So
yeah,
that's what makes it effective, and that's what keeps the pass rush unrelenting. But hopefully we can get. I really hope of all the players, if my wish list were to happen, obviously Trent Williams and Bosa. Those are the main 2. If we get nobody else back, Bosa and Trent Williams, like those are the 2 that we need.
100%. I was thinking too. I was like, those are the
best
the
on the offensive line. Those are our anchors on the offensive line and the defensive line right there. So we need both.
2 huge players to the team.
Yeah,
really. I mean,
absolutely. But I mean, like the Chiefs are. they're explosive. They've been managing to score points. They're 4-2 without Tyreek Hill. They've been getting Juju involved. They've still got McCole Hardman. They've got, obviously, Travis Kelce, who's possibly the best receiving tight end. I think Kittle's the best all-around tight end, but Kelce's definitely the best receiving threat.
Yeah, I'd say Kelce's definitely the best receiving tight end. But I mean, Kittle overall, if I had to pick one or the other, I'd pick Kittle,
we specifically don't force the ball to him. I'd be very interested to see what a Niners offense looked where we force-fed the ball to Kittle 10 to 14 times a day or 10 to 14 times a game.
I agree.
That'd be interesting to see. Because he did have the tight end record. Remember, like the over 200-yard game? He's got the record for single yards in a game for a tight end. So when we feature him, I mean, he's got the potential. It's just we've got some. We're giving.
He's
Debo
a good
looks.
Blocker. He's a good blocker. I mean,
and especially with Trent Williams out, it's been hard to take him away from the offensive line because they've needed the help.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens with Kansas City. Obviously, they're still a threat. Their offensive line has been going through some injuries, so hopefully we can give them hell on the defensive side of the ball and, really stop Mahomes. I mean, I look for Mahomes to do some crazy magical shit that only he can do anyway. I mean, there's only so much you can do to counter that. I mean, he's going to make plays, but hopefully we can stop them inside the 20s and keep them, from scoring too many points.
Just keeping the field goals if you can. I mean, shit.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Obviously, holding that offense out of the end zone is going to be crucial because they're so dangerous. And their defense is pretty good, too. I know they're going to be coming after Jimmy pretty hard, but, I mean, we haven't allowed a sack in the last couple weeks, so hopefully that can continue. Obviously Jimmy's not the most mobile guy, but he's done enough. He's done enough to avoid the sack the last few weeks. But hopefully that can continue. And let's see. I think I mentioned all the injuries. Robbie Gould played in the last game. I don't know if you saw the fucking hit that Robbie Gould took in the Panthers game.
I did.
Yeah, where he made we allowed 2 big returns and Robbie Gould put himself out there and basically got himself taken out. We signed a kicker, Sam Sloman, to the practice squad, and there was questions about whether Robbie would play. Obviously, he wasn't really a factor much because we only scored 14 points, but he made his 2 extra points after having a knee contusion, or what was labeled as a knee confusion. I saw on one thing, which was pretty hilarious. I was like, how the fuck you got knee confusion? I was like, I don't know if Robbie can come back from that. He might be out for the season. Knee confusion.
That's a new one. What is that?
Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah, I was like, that seems like it's at least 8 to 12 weeks of knee confusion. But, Jesus. Yeah, but Robbie, the oldest kicker in the league at 39, continuing to be kind of a badass. Maybe we should take Robbie off kickoff duty and put Wishnowsky back in there. Because that's what we were doing last year. I mean, Wishnowsky's a little bit more spry, able to make the tackle. And as you saw, Wishnowsky's terrible at kicking it. He made 1 out of 2 extra points, but the one he missed was so far off.
Those were hard. Those were hard to watch.
Yeah,
to be honest.
Yeah, I know. Wishnowsky obviously doesn't practice field goals and extra points, which maybe we should start doing that. Brian Schneider, our special teams coach, should start emphasizing that being a part of practice. But yeah, I mean, hopefully we can come away with a win against the Chiefs. If we do, we're going to have to play pretty close to flawless football. We're going to have to limit the turnovers. We had 3 against the Falcons. But yeah, I mean, hopefully we're talking about a win next week. I mean, the Chiefs they're 4-2, and one of those losses was against the Colts, who are kind of an average team, and we're way better than the Colts. So if we can get some of our pieces back, we can get a win. I'm hoping that we can pull it off, Faithful. Follow us next week. We'll recap the game either way. But thanks for joining us this week. And that's going to do it for the Extra Point Show this week. Make sure that you subscribe if you're not already. It really helps us out and helps us grow. Give us a like as well.
Absolutely. And if you're a Washington fan or a San Francisco fan, make sure to always check out the Commanders Countdown and the Niners News Update.
Okay, well, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you all next week.
See you next week.